Big Ten season starts this weekend, so an exciting opportunity, sort of a new season in itself, and it sort of all starts here. So things get moving all over the conference today. I want to first of all congratulate our 65-66 team coming back, being honored at halftime, being honored this weekend, and then also note that this is the 25th reunion for our 1990 Big Ten championship team. So the 65-66, obviously national championship team, but. When you look at our football team right now, we need to continue to try and play our best football as we move forward. Obviously things don't always go perfectly. I think we've had a tough out-of-conference schedule, as I've mentioned before, and I don't think it was, when we play at Western Michigan, that's a huge game over there. When you play Oregon coming back, huge game. Air Force comes in, option football. Big game for Central Michigan coming over here, so because it's in-state. So. We're looking forward to the out-of-conference schedule. Purdue has provided some great matchups in the past years. We've played them 6 times since I've been here, and you can go back and look at every one of those games, and very exciting games. So known Darrell Hazel a long time. He's got an Ohio State connection, much like I do, although we were not there at the same time. So I know what his basic philosophy is. Good football coach who have his guys ready to play. So I'll take some questions.
Mark, with so much that's gone well, being 4-0, are you disappointed you haven't had the opportunities because the games have been closer than you like to get some reps for your backup quarterbacks?
Yeah, I am. Almost 3 of those 4 games, we were right there ready to do that, and then, somebody make a play. And it just would get a little bit dicey, and so we stayed with our guys. But that's the nature of it. And as I've said, I think all 4 of those football teams do great things. They have guys, and, that's the way it goes. But, yeah, I would agree.
Mark, it's the 100th homecoming. Can you talk a little bit about that and then what homecoming means in general?
What was the first question?
It's the 100th homecoming. 100th homecoming. Can you talk a little bit about
100.
that?
Yeah, I've only been around for 9. Okay, so... yeah, I think that's significant. We talk in terms of Michigan State football and tradition around this country. Michigan State is one of those places that has a great tradition. So to be a part of this 100th homecoming is special. This university has been on the map a long time, first land-grant university, and with that comes a lot of things that have been around for a long, long time. This would be one of them. And then as far as the second question was just this game? Homecoming in general. I look forward to it. I don't get to see many of our players. I do look forward to seeing our players every time they come back. Some of them come back every now and then, periodically. But for me, that's what homecoming is. It's our players coming back. I think at a large university like this, I'm sure every segment of the university has people coming back, and it's special for them. For me, it's our football family coming back together. So I'll look forward to seeing some of those guys if I can, but it'll be tough.
Mark, when you played these guys last year down in West Lafayette, they played you tough, especially in the first half, and did some things offensively. And it looked like that program might be on the verge of turning a corner, and they've struggled a little bit. What have you seen since then on film that they've kind of taken a step back? Where have they struggled?
Well, first of all, just like everything, you always can't look at the score and say, no, it wasn't. The scores indicate one thing. The game itself indicates other things. The games always have been close. They've been competitive. I think they've got guys. Everybody's got guys. Last season, I thought that we were I think it was 31-17 at one point. We faked a punt, didn't go well. The score is 31-24, so it flips from maybe going in one direction to another direction. But if you look at the history of the games, they've always been close games. We expect those things for whatever reason. We play each other very, very well, and there's been a tradition of that. Even before I was the head coach, when I was an assistant here, and I go back to the 95, 96, or the 97 game, the 98 game, they were all extremely close games. And if you remember back then, that's when Drew Brees was playing and things like that.
Hey, Coach, do you have any special guests that might be coming back to talk with the team, former Spartans, or any special plans for the homecoming game?
We have not yet named our honorary captain. We're seeing if the guy can come back before we name him. So, but no, other than that, no. Just see our players, our former players will be back, those that can come.
Mark, wondering how close Darian Hicks is right now to getting himself into that starting lineup. And you mentioned Monte maybe moving to the boundary safety. Is that the practice plan this week?
Those guys can play around different positions, so we're gonna see how all that works out. But I would agree that Darian Hicks is in a situation to start. See what kind of practices he has this week. But I thought he played well in the second half. So.
I guess I better have two questions because the first one will be short. But
Okay.
the two
I'll
defensive.
remember that one then.
The two,
Sometimes I forget the questions up here.
I know. I'll do them one at a time.
Maybe I'll just ask you what was the first question again, just for
Right. Well, this will be short. There is no injury update, right?
No injury.
Let me ask you this: is anyone?
It's amazing how fast they heal. Go ahead.
Is
Second
anyone?
question.
Well, I have three then.
Okay.
Is anyone season threatening?
Is anyone?
Threatening to?
No. No more. There's been no season-ending injuries
Okay.
other than the two we've talked about.
So we just show up and see who's going to play, right?
This is Tuesday, so
Yeah.
we'll see what happens by Friday or Saturday. Usually we'll make those announcements prior to the game. If they're not able to play the game, that's when we'll make them.
Mark, everyone makes so much of the national championship race now in the rankings, but in the old school days, it was always about the Big Ten. Is it still the Big Ten to you? Is it still a big deal?
Yeah, it's a really big deal to me. I mean, we coach in the Big Ten, so that's what I'm concerned about. I think coaches basically, put themselves in a bubble. I don't care what conference you're in. You sort of submerge yourself in that conference. You really don't know too much what's going on in other conferences other than what you may read time to time or as it gets near the end of the season. I just think that's the norm. When I was at Cincinnati, I couldn't have told you what was going on in the Big Ten. I was concerned with what was going on in the Big East. So I think that's just the norm for me. It's all about what we do now. This is the start of something special. It is the start of something special every single year when we get to the Big Ten Conference, and that's the way it should be. Great conference, great crowds, a lot of media exposure, great questions being asked every week. So it's I'm just immersed in all this.
Mark, this could be the third time in a row you faced Purdue with a new quarterback. I'm just curious, how different is it preparing when you are having to do that each time? You're not being able to build off what you had the year before.
A little bit different, but I think that happens in college football. I think their quarterback, David Blau, I think he's a redshirt freshman. He went in there, threw for 340 yards this last week. Has the ability to get out of the pocket a little bit and scramble and move. They ran some quarterback draws with him. I'm sure they could do some other things with him. So they'll sprint out a little bit as well. So looks like a good athlete, and that's the decision they've made to go. And I thought he played well last week.
I guess kind of a two-part question. You mentioned the fake punt. We later learned that was an accidental call. Brian Allen told us. Can you tell us why did you say that you called it after the game rather than just say it was a mix-up? And two, could you talk about Brian Allen? We haven't heard much about him this season.
That was probably the problem with the fake because he didn't know it was a fake. So there was no mistake. That was a fake.
Oh, he didn't know.
He didn't know. Yeah. That's why it didn't work. So there's always another side of the story. But I'll talk to Brian about it. And the other question was?
Just about Brian in general, how he's done.
Brian's a very good player, and he's remained healthy. There are always things that can improve in a football game, and I think that his play will improve as he gets older. He's still basically a true sophomore. But he could be a dominant player for us.
I just want to ask you a little about Shalik. Obviously he comes in with so many people know about him, and Coach Burton talked about defenses kind of scheming against him and how he's had to adjust to that. I guess talk about how he's kind of made that adjustment himself and then has a game like he did last week and is able to produce like that.
I think Shalik Calhoun is, first of all, a very unselfish player, very unselfish person. I see him always whenever he's interviewed, he looks to give credit to other people. He's extremely quick off the ball. He's got great hand movement. He's a big guy. People think of him as, he came here at 215. I mean, he's almost 6'5", 260. but he has a knack for playing on the edge and things like that. But he can be a collision guy too. So sometimes he needs to, he's gap oriented, where it takes him maybe out of a pass rush. Everybody thinks, because you have sacks that you're a great defensive end. It's always the other things that you do as well. And I think he's a complete player in a lot of respects. He had a big game last week. That's exciting because we enter the Big Ten season, and he'll be ready to go. But he provides a leadership for our football team as well, and we're excited. I'm very excited he's back with us, obviously, but I think he's an unselfish player.
Mark, in the vein of the two-part questions, first, talk a little bit about what Connor did last week and spreading the ball around to a number of different guys and a lot of guys outside of the receiving group. And secondly, talk a little bit about what those backup tight ends, between Lyles, and I guess they're not really backups when they've got oars on it, but Lyles and Lang have provided behind Josiah.
Yeah, really, when you look at I'll answer the second part of that first two-part question first. It's always the part I remember. First of all three of those tight ends are really playing equally. They're all playing about 30, 31, 32 snaps a game, and they all have certain situations that they're probably better at, and they're all used in all the situations. I think Josiah is the guy that's getting most of the catches for touchdowns, etc., but I think Jamal Lyles and Paul Lang both have that ability. And we really go five deep there because I think we have two other tight ends in Sokol and Shimura that are very good players as well, will be. The second
part was about the spreading the ball in the back and the tight ends.
Oh yeah, Connor did a nice job with that yesterday, and Saturday, and took what was given to him. Obviously, he's hit Burbage a lot prior to, but he spread it around this past week, and that was good to see. And I think we have other guys that can make plays, and the more people that are making plays, the better it is for everybody. We only had 8 different series this past weekend, so we were limited offensively in the number of plays. I think we had 56 plays, I believe, which is as few as we've had. But we scored every series in the first half, and then in the fourth quarter, 2 series as well. So, we need to be able to obviously have more plays and distribute it more. But I think Cotter does a great job. Little short on his passing numbers probably this past week, but I think it was based on the number of plays we had and the nature of the situation of the game. We were able to run the ball in that fourth quarter and things of that nature.
Mark, with some new guys on the offensive line and some guys shifting around a little bit, how important has a guy like Jack Allen been kind of getting some continuity there and keeping guys?
I think Jack Allen can play every position up on the offensive line. I think he can pop out the tackle even in his stature is maybe not a 6'5", 6'6" guy. I think he's athletic enough and has enough power and snap and explosiveness to be able to play out there. So he's obviously a leader on our football team. He's very strong personality. He's extremely tough. He's been playing for 4 years, playing a lot and been sort of the starting center probably for 3 or 4 years now. So a lot of calls, a lot of different things that he does up there. He's an All-American last year. So he's obviously an important part of our football team, not just on the field, but as a person as well. I think he's done an outstanding job.
Mark, did what Gerald Holmes did change the dynamic of the running back competition last week, and also the short kickoffs, or a number of squib kicks, and the decision for that, and is that a reaction to early kickoff returns?
Well, maybe a little bit of that, but the wind was blowing down on the field, and we were going to kick off, and then all of a sudden the wind shifted into our face, like literally on that moment, and so we squibbed it. And sometimes deep kicks don't necessarily go deep at times too. So so there's a little bit of that, and we're just trying to basically build a resume, I think, as much as anything. And then as far as first question, okay, Gerald Holmes, I think, did put himself a little bit more into that 3-group category. Thought he had a good game, caught the ball well, had a couple big plays, and you have to look at that and say, hey, he deserves maybe more opportunities. It's just hard to get those opportunities if you're rotating 3 backs. So Delton Williams is available as well. So, but I think that if you look at our guys, all 3 of those guys did good things in the game. So it's tough to rep 3 of them, but he certainly deserves that distinction to be in the hunt there. And so I could have bolded him today too. I just didn't think you guys could handle it.
Mark, one-part question. How difficult is it to make a decision on a red shirt like Kari Willis? Do you make that decision?
Tough.
Do you make that decision on Friday, or is it ever the day of the game or during a game because of circumstances?
Well, he was repping at number 2 as a number 2 for pretty much most of the week, and he's had good practices and got a feeling about him as a person. I knew he'd show up on special teams, but I just didn't want to play him in 4 or 5 snaps and things of that nature, and then made the decision on Saturday based on circumstances. Let's go. I think he's a good player, but it is hard because I want our guys to graduate. And so when you play for 4 years straight, actually you're going to school for 3.5, then, there's an added significance there. You don't have that extra year. A lot of our guys graduate at mid-year or they graduate the spring of their 4th year. So that means you've got to really overload yourself in the summers to be able to do that if you're going to graduate in 3.5, and which can be done, and he's an excellent student. But that always enters into my mind. Plus I start thinking, I was like, well, let's see, 15, 16, 17, 18. I guess he won't be here in 19. Okay? So I started looking at those things, and we've had some guys who took the red shirt off of, and then that year comes and we regret that. So I'm always trying to do what's best for the program and then also what's best for that individual. So if we take the red shirt off him, he's got to play, just like Felton Davis. I keep forcing, I think every game I'm saying, hey, Terry, get Coach Samuels, get Felton in the game, get him in the game, get him going. Let's go. We got to throw to him. Took the red shirt off of him. He's good enough. Let's go. But that's a part of it too. So right now I'm pushing Andrew Dowell in the same respect. I'm saying, hey, he only played 7 plays this past week on defense. He needs to play more. So obviously L.J. Scott's playing a lot. Yeah. Yeah, because if he's a 2, and I'm telling him, hey, get yourself ready, that shirt may come off. And that's what happened, and I'm glad we did it because I think he's ready.
You mentioned Connor spreading the ball around a little bit more. I think last year obviously it was tempting to look Tony's way all the time. Was that something you worked on and pushed him to do a little bit more this season, or worked with him on?
The last part of that was
something you worked with him to do more of this year?
Well, I think a good quarterback spreads the ball around and goes to the reads that he has within his play, the specific play. I always think they have, obviously a number 1 read based on coverage, 2, 3, that type of thing. But there's also that confidence factor where this guy's going to make a play too. So it's sort of a catch-22 there, I think, a little bit. But he's done a nice job with that, and we've got guys. Monty Medeiros should be playing soon. I think he's about ready to go. Like I said, Felton Davis, Troop's been in there some. D'Anthony Arnett's been in there some. So we've got guys, and he needs to work through that.
Mark, Mark over here.
Yeah.
When Connor's just 1 win away from passing Kirk Cousins as the winningest starting quarterback in this school's history, is this something you could have envisioned for him when he was just a backup coming off the bench trying to save the Buffalo Wild Wings Bowl?
I think it's something that we envision as a program that everybody should always chase those things that we've accomplished already and go farther. And we've had great success here in the last 3 years, I guess you'd say. I mean, really, he's done it in 2 years and 4 games. So he's had great success. We had a couple years, when Kirk was the quarterback that we were, 2009 was a tougher year. We won 6 games. But I think that speaks to not just the quarterback, but to the entire program. But, that's a monumental figure, I guess, or accomplishment, because those things just aren't going to happen, all the time. They should, though.
Coaches continually talk about being balanced, but one thing Coach Hazel has done is, they are exactly balanced. I don't remember the number. If it's 189 for some reason, at number 6 in my head, passes to rushes. How different is it when they literally are 50-50?
Well, I think they want to run the football and control the clock. I think that's what coaches basically want to do. They want to take the time and end the game. And so to do that, you've got to be able to run the football, and you've got to commit to runs to be able to do that. And so you've got to find a way. So that's his background. As I said, that's his background. That's what he's going to do. And they're certainly going to take shots and throw the ball down the field as well. But I think they want balance. I think coaches, that's what we're always talking about. Every time I talk about what are the keys to victory here, I'm always saying, hey, we got to run the football. Got to protect our quarterback. We got to get explosive plays. We got to stay balanced. I don't think I've ever said, hey, we got to throw the ball 50 times and throw for 400 yards. The equation is stay balanced and make them play both ends of the stick.
Coach, you mentioned redshirts a moment ago. I think a couple weeks ago you were talking about gradually working different guys in. Is there any chance we'll see any of those true freshman corners, or have you made a decision that you have enough cornerback depth?
Well, there's always a chance. It's always a chance. I mean, it'll be based on practice this week.
Mark, in talking to John Bonamego last week, he's kind of cited this program as a blueprint for what he wants to do at Central Michigan. When you hear that, when you hear other coaches talk about the blueprint of Michigan State football, how does that change, I guess, in the perception since you took the job to hear that?
Well, any new coach coming into any program looks to another program and says, we want to be like them. So that's, honored that he would say that about our program. But we did the same thing when we came here. We said, okay, we need to be like this particular program and try and emulate some of the things and some of the people that they were recruiting or some of the things that they were able to do. And I think every program wants to be built for the long haul. I don't think everybody's looking to say, okay, let's win now and get out of here. Hopefully people don't do that type of thing. But so honored for him to have said that. And, looked at Central when they came out. And you can see, I don't want to talk about Coach Enos, but you can see the people that he recruited. And they had a good-looking football team. I mean, they had a good-looking football team physically.
Mark, it looked like Demetrius Cooper stepped in pretty well on Saturday. Is he starting to flash with more consistency now?
Yeah, Coop's been very solid throughout the year so far, and really I can just consider himself a starter. Consider him a starter because he plays in there just as much as everybody else. Because LT jumps inside, plays defensive tackle, and Coop moves in the defensive end position. So played a lot of football. We rotate our defensive line. We're going to keep him fresh. And he's a very good player.
I wanted to ask you about your day in the life last week.
How'd that go?
I thought it was interesting. Did you have fun doing it would be one question. And then is there any...
Not as much fun as I have doing this. Yeah. Certainly.
I also want to ask you, Ohio State had the all-access show, and I think people looked at that as a recruiting tool for them. Was that any sort of inspiration, and would you do a show like that, like a whole camp show, if you had the opportunity at some point?
HBO actually asked us to do that this season, do a Hard Knocks this season, but I sort of passed on that because I didn't really want to put ourselves in that situation. I think it's a good show. I've watched it, and I think it's well done, but we just passed on it right now because I want our players to concentrate on what we have to do here and not on a camera. And I want us to be us. And I just didn't feel like at this point in time that was something that we should do. Maybe in the future, but I just didn't feel like that was something that we should do right now. But our success that we've had here recently warranted that opportunity. But that's what we decided to do because basically we get enough press. I felt. Oh, it's just hard. It was just hard for me because you're sort of trying to do your job, and you sort of, I don't know. If it was good for you guys, it was good for me.
Mark, the Big Ten is one conference where the fullback position seems very much alive and well. Can you talk a little bit about its importance to your team, and is it harder to recruit to that position now with the spread offenses in high school? And so forth?
Yeah, I think the fullback is a little bit of a lost art in college football right now, but everything cycles through. And so when people have to start out now, begin to play with the fullback in the backfield, and they have to defend that extra piece from a blocking perspective and all the different things that you can do with him and out of the backfield. I think that he becomes a guy that people have to deal with, and they have to practice and things of that nature. From a recruiting perspective, I think most of the times you take linebackers or guys that have played both sides of the ball in high school, linebacker, fullback, you recruit them to be a linebacker rather than recruit him to be a fullback maybe more often than not. But he's got some ball skills, he's got toughness, size. He obviously needs to understand schematically things. But that's what we've done. We've had some guys that were good linebackers that have been outstanding fullbacks for us. We're going to use the fullback not all the time. Obviously, you guys watch our games, but we're going to use them at times. And if they can't stop an offense with the fullback, then we'll use them more often than not. But I think you're right. I think people are going back to that, and they have some semblance of that in their offense.
Mark, my sense of the fan base here is the winning consistently at this level is a fairly new thing, and they don't quite know how to enjoy it week to week like they did during the rise. For you,
like me.
So that's my question for you. Is it more fun, the building you had, the rise, the exhilaration of 2013 and all that sort of stuff, 2010 and 11, or do you enjoy this week to week where there aren't maybe the small victories that you got in the initial rise?
Well, I enjoy seeing our players play well to the best of their abilities and for us to function as a team. So every single game, like I said the other night, that's not going to happen. You hope that it happens more often than not, and that you win the game. And the end of the deal, the end result needs to be, hey, you win the game. You be happy with that, and take all these other things and put them over here and try and improve. But I think it's human nature to always be looking to say, okay, hey, they're there. Here they are. Here they are. When are they going to fall? When's that shoe going to fall? And I would just encourage people to stay with us and hang with it and have fun doing it, and get ready to play Purdue and come excited and ready to go. But I understand, that everybody is a coach out there. Got a lot of armchair coaches out there. You guys don't have anything to hold your hands up right here, though. Okay, but a lot of armchair coaches out there, and everybody's got the answers. But on the day of a game, just understand that everybody's playing against somebody, and somebody else has a plan too. And so there's two plans in motion there, and whoever executes the best usually wins. And you're not going to win them. You're not going to win every single play, but you've got to win more often than not to win a game. And you can't make the big mistakes. If you look at our game this past weekend, we didn't make a lot of big mistakes. Had two plays. We had one pass play and another pass play that really went 40 yards. Other than that, they were, 3rd and 10 or 3rd and 8, and they'd get 9. So we'd start again. But bottom line is we gave up 10 points because of that. Because of the longevity of the drives, we didn't get as many opportunities on offense, so we didn't score as many points. But, that happens too.
Thanks a lot, Coach.
Thanks, guys.